Well, welcome everyone. Welcome to, of course, Love Akron Live. I'm Benjamin Beaver, and I'm excited to get to be with you today. Very excited about our conversation today, of course, with Coach Kemp, and talking through some just amazing stuff. I'm still sharing my screen. I'm sorry, guys. Stop sharing that. Now we can look at the good faces, my friends. I'm Benjamin Beaver. Welcome to Love Akron Live. And of course, we have the one, the only Coach Kemp Boyd. How are you doing today, man?
Man, Ben, I'm doing wonderful, man. Good to see you, brother.
Now, we were talking a little bit earlier today, and we're on two different sides of something. And I know other people are going back to school today. I dropped my daughter, who is, 4 years old, off at preschool, and I got a little bit emotional, just a little bit, not too much, not going to write home about it. But you had something happen today that I thought was kind of cool. Who went to school today, and what grade is she in?
Yeah, our oldest daughter, Virginia, she started her high school career as a freshman today. So extremely excited for her. Wasn't emotional at all. Her mom was probably a lot more emotional. To me, this is just a part of the process. I prayed over my daughter and spoke over her this morning as, we released her out, and excited for her. However, I know she's going to do well. She is a lot more mature at the age of 14 than I ever was. So yeah, it's gonna be a good year for her. I don't know how long she's gonna be in school, but I told her to enjoy today, because tomorrow could be different. So really, really good.
Man, that's how I think every parent of students feel right now, and it's this All right, maybe this will work. I don't know. We'll come up with plan B and plan C as much as we can, but like we're just kind of doing and that's one of the things that we wanted to do today actually on Love Akron Live. This will be a shorter episode. But if you have any questions throughout, please just write them in here or thoughts or things that are going on in your life. What is, what is school life for your family? Might be a good question to put in there, but what we wanted to do was just pause for a second, man. I got to go on a trip and not a vacation, because a vacation is where you go away with your wife. A trip is where you take your kids and you make memories, but you don't necessarily, rest. So I got thinking a little bit of headspace, and I was like, man, we have done so much in the last, 6 months, would you say?
Yeah.
Has it been about like, when do you feel like
I'd
with
say the
Love
past 8
Akron?
months.
Yeah, talk to me about when you feel like it really just like started to just gain momentum, because God's done a lot in the last 8 months, and I just kind of want to stop and thank Him for it, but like think about it for a second.
Yeah, I tell you what, it's, I don't know if you're able to necessarily pinpoint a time. What I know right now is the way I feel about things. I feel like and I feel like us as an organization, we found somewhat of a rhythm, if you will, to kind of the pace or the beat that we're trying to run. And honestly, I think that COVID for us as an organization played a really great role with us. I think becoming the type of organization that we have become, because we had to pivot really, really quickly. We had these great resources internally, I think, to produce really great content um, for our website, for Zoom, our live stream platform and audience. So I think that's been a really great thing. And so, it's been one of those summers, man, where everything kind of seems cluttered together. We're in the middle of a capital campaign and in the middle of getting sponsorship for our breakfast. So a lot of our planning in the summer has been around those type of things, but also trying to do the best we can to stay ahead of what's going on right now in current events, especially as you talk about COVID. That was kind of, if you will, our first pandemic that happened, and really trying to get ourselves up to speed and educated on it, but also trying to educate Greater Akron and trying to say, hey, if there is a need, hey, here's a resource, and trying to connect those things. And then, we get punched in the mouth with George Floyd and everything that was going on racially, and still now want to be faithful to stay in that space and continue to talk about race and the opportunities that we have, not just to talk about it, but also to lean in and celebrate it as well. Because one thing that we don't want to do, and we've said this many times here on our platform, is that it's going to be something that we're going to continue to talk about. We'll never stop talking about it, which launched the connection versus collision, the black-white conversation, which we have gotten a tremendous amount of, I think, attention to, and people really like what we're doing, but we knew that wasn't good enough. It was about what are the next steps to the black-white conversation, to now where we build these rooms for people to kind of build and establish relationships with one another. And so we have been asked to be a part of some really great things that are going on in Greater Akron, and come out and speak and talk about some of these issues, and what does that look like and how does that go. So it's been not gonna lie to you, man, I'm tired, sleepy, haven't slept well the past 5 days, not because I'm stressed about anything. It's just kind of my habits. I'm a light sleeper, so it takes me a while to go to sleep, but then it takes me a while to stay asleep. So that is the challenge. And some people, but just talking to Mayor Horgan today before I got on here, he says, man, Kemp, it's kind of what we signed up for. He said, man, we're servants. And so whenever you lead from the front, what's going to happen is you're going to have to take some in the chin, you're going to take some in the nose, maybe in the eye, maybe in the stomach, but that's the role we signed up for. I think individually, as him as being mayor of Akron, me being the executive director of Love Akron, but I think also our organizations have stepped up to be not only a backbone organization, but also an organization to where we want to lead from the front. So when we do that, we are going to face some criticism. We're going to have critics. We're going to have people that says, hey, maybe you should have did this, maybe you should have did this way. And that's okay. I think the key is not taking those things personal, but standing by your being and what you believe God has given you to do. And I think if you can kind of function in that way and speak in that way and be in that way, it'll birth out what you do. So we've been talking a lot about the being and the doing culture. That's always going to be a part of our language. And so, yeah, but it's been good, man. It's been productive for sure.
What I love hearing, man, is it is the double-edged sword that is influence and opportunity. Mm-hmm. Is not everybody will agree with how you do something. Not everybody will agree about what you do. But when we do stick in our being and who we are, it's not like we have to defend who we are, but it's this level of explanation. And one thing I've gotten to watch personally firsthand with you that's been just amazing to me is dealing with that with dignity. Like, and I'm not tooting Coach's horn to say, oh, he's perfect all the time. No, man. And I'm not either. But like at the same time, what I've gotten to see is in every sense of adversity, you've kept your character going. Maybe just for those listening now or maybe later, like, where does that come from, man? Because like there's been meetings I've been in, I'm like, oh, Coach, I would have just gotten angry and said a bunch of things that I shouldn't. And you kept your cool. Where did you learn that at? And how can we learn how to do that too?
Oh man, I think you just kind of learn it along the journey. Believe me, man, I've been that guy to kind of feel like I needed to speak my mind and I needed to speak up. And what I learned is I was probably reacting more than responding because it was a little bit more emotional. But I got to give a shout out here to, Jonathan Greer, man. Jonathan Greer taught me years ago. We've been not even friends, man. We've been brothers for a long, long time. And I love him as that. And I can remember, man, this was, again, had to be close to 15 years ago. He comes to me and he said, hey, Kemp, man, you'll do yourself a lot more justice if you just operate with a little bit more tact. And he told me, he said, hey, the content of what you're saying is accurate. He said, but your delivery is off. And so that's something that I've never forgotten that he told me. And I have a huge amount of respect for Jonathan Greer and who he is as a man and how he leads his life. And so hearing that from him, that's something that obviously I've never forgotten. And so I have been able to watch other people from a leadership position do what they do. And it is about, that's how the hot concept for me in leadership developed. It was being humble. And what does it mean to be humble? And being humble is not a passive thing. I think we get that wrong within our society. Humility is not this passive thing, but really to be humble or have humility is really a sign of strength. It's not taking this posture that I always need to defend myself or my position. And I've learned that too, man, just from, I had a pastor that says, hey, do you see anywhere in the Bible where Jesus defended himself? And that was a great question because I don't remember him ever having to defend himself, right? He knew who he was. He stood on that. And if I can try to model just a little bit of that, I feel like I'll be better off. So for me, it's that first level of being high. It's being humble. It's understanding that you don't know what you don't know. And it's understanding that sometimes you're going to get more just simply from listening versus always trying to talk and speak your point of view. So, but yeah, I've had to learn that, man, through many failures at it. So you got to learn from a place of not getting it right and you get it right.
Man, and that story of Jonathan about tact that actually has been going on in my mind even while on vacation, and I just popped in my mind. I was up at Lake Erie with the family, and tact, if you put it into an acronym, is truth at correct times.
Yeah,
it's like been drilling into me that it's like, yeah, there's a lot of truths that do need to be said, but if it's not at the right, if it's at the wrong time, then you're just creating a fight. And that's what's been amazing to get to see things de-escalated from you. A couple of things we wanted to highlight as well. Let me share my screen with you guys real quick. Double up there is and you can actually access all of these if you go to loveakron.org /watch, or go to engage and go to featured videos. I just wanted to bring up a couple of these because sometimes we just blow past these conversations. Do you remember our conversation with Bishop Joey Johnson from House of the Lord? And we were talking about that's where we got that quote about trust, moving at the speed of trust. How is that, just to bring that up, how has that kind of like taken root in your life and in the life of our organization?
Yeah, I'm gonna answer that, but I want to go back to the word you said about tact. And I think when you look at a coach or any type of leader, I think there's always three things that they're going to do, right? They're either going to be heavily critical of everything you do, right? Or they're going to be affirming of everything you do, meaning you don't do anything wrong, even if it is wrong. But then what you learn, and this has kind of been my process, but what you learn how to affirm that which is good and call out that which needs to be addressed at the right time, right? So going back to your academic tact, that's what tact is. It's like, yeah, you can affirm people, but when it's time to call out what needs to be addressed, man, we do it in a very tactful way. And so I think that leads into the questions you asked, even about moving at a speed of trust, because I think moving at a speed of trust means just that. It means that at the right time, these things will get developed, or these things will get addressed, or these things will happen. It doesn't mean they're going to happen always in the moment. And so we are in a society that we get really integrated and we get moved by big things, the big event, the big concert, the big gathering, the big breakfast, all these different types of things. And we kind of really saw this happen when it came to the racial tension that was going on in our country, to where it was like, hey, man, the next big protest, the next big rally, and those things are good. I'm not speaking against those things. However, those things are not going to get us ultimately to where we need to be at when we think about race within our country. And, Bishop Johnson spoke this to us, and he continues to talk about this. I was on a phone call with him yesterday on a Zoom meeting with him yesterday, and he kept bringing up the word about authentic relationships. And he kept driving this home between myself, Pastor Tim Armstrong of the Chapel, and Pastor Jeff Bogue of Grace. And he kept coming back to this. He's like, it's almost like no matter what we're talking about, he said, understand it all comes back to authentic relationships. And the only way you get to really authentic relationships with people is you have to be able to move at a speed of trust, because we're two different people, Ben, and the engagement or the amount of speed we move with are going to be different. Ben might say, hey, man, I want to do this. And I'm like, okay, yeah, but until I know you, Ben, I'm not doing those things with you, because I don't know your motive. I don't know your intention. I don't know your why. And so by moving at the speed of trust, we give ourselves time to understand and learn people's motives. We get to learn people's intentions, and we get to learn people's whys. What drives you? What makes you feel like, man, I want to go and do this, to where, man, when I hear it, I can hear and see your passion, but also your intention of why you want to do it. Because so many times, I think within our country and within our history, we have people that have really, really great ideas, but I don't know necessarily if they're God ideas, right? And so we just move and we go and do something, but then we end up doing something that's not sustainable. And then people look back and says, hey, what happened to that thing? You remember that thing that happened? And yeah, it's this big old thing that we did, but where's it at now? Or what was the results of that, right? And so we just want to make sure that as an organization that we're not doing that either. That the breakfast people will come to on September 29th, that people don't leave that and a month later says, hey, what's that thing that we went to? And what was the purpose of that? And why are they doing that? And why they give out these awards? No, man, we want you to know why we're doing it and why we will continue to do it for the next 10 years is because of the value that comes from it, not for us at Love Akron, but what it does for raising the awareness of some of these great initiatives that we are partnering with different organizations with.
Oh man, and it's huge because like even to use specifics that we've talked about, you know, we haven't seen any news headlines about statues getting taken down. It was interesting how there's probably about 3-week stint there.
Oh,
And some of that's okay. Some of that's okay. But to say like, hey, we took the statue down and
everything's
and
great.
now everybody's hunky-dory. You're like, no, like this systemic issues need systemic solutions. And that's why we're committed to this not being a moment in time, but being a movement that we all are a part of.
Exactly.
Man, dude. So how have you seen that? And I know we've talked about this before, but it's just, how have you seen from that conversation with Bishop? Because you just mentioned it, and this is also on that loveakron.org/watch, is this conversation around race with these local pastors, Jeff Bogue, Pastor Tim Armstrong. How has that spurred other relationships on, not only with you guys, but also with others, man? Because I've seen some of those opportunities come out of that, and we could just be okay with that. Like, yay, we got featured with the big guys, if you will. But what authentic relationships have come out of that for you?
You know, I think for me, man, which is, I think, I don't want to say it's surprising because it's not, when I think we really move in a place of submitting ourselves and really walking from a concept of hot. One of the greatest things I think that have happened to me personally through this is the amount of time me and my wife, Stacey, have been able to go into launch into some very intimate and uncomfortable conversation with people that don't look like us. Where we've been invited into their homes to say, hey, listen, Kemp, man, we heard you, or we listened to Black White Conversation and we found what was being said interesting, but man, we want to have more of an intimate discussion with you and with your wife to invite you into our space. And so those things have been really great because, to your point, Ben, it's been able to launch maybe some relationships that I didn't ever think I would have, especially with people that don't look like me, other white brothers and sisters. And so, you know, when the video came out between myself and Bishop and Pastor Jeff and Pastor Tim, you know, I received a lot of calls from a lot of white brothers and sisters that says, hey, man, really love what you guys were doing and respect what was being said. Hey, can we meet for a cup of coffee? Can we meet for lunch? I'd love to talk to you more about this. And let me tell you something, it wasn't a one-hit wonder. It just wasn't the one lunch or the one coffee, but it's been several since then. So, but again, it's going back to, that wasn't a big event. That wasn't a thing that 500 to 1,000 people came to. That was 4 individuals doing a Zoom call, talking about race, talking about their perception of what's happening, going on, other people seeing it and watching it, and phone calls and connections starting to happen. And that's how change happens, right? If you can change a person, you can change a culture. But you don't change a person sometimes in these huge, in these huge, if you will, vacuums of events. But it happens. And now, don't get me wrong, that this work is harder. It's harder because you gotta piecemeal a person up to 5 people, maybe 20 people. But think about it. When we talk about 75% of white people don't have a meaningful connection or relationship with somebody outside their race or with a Black person, at one time that percentage was 99. So what that tells me is that we are making progress, and we may never get it to 0, and that's okay. But how do we just get it to 65? And so some of these relationships that I've been able to cultivate, we've been able to chop wood, if you will, on that baseline number. But that's where the work is. And I think you have these people that want to do, which great, is good. But I think sometimes by having the big event, it takes us out of the work. It takes us out of really having to work to get to know each other. You cannot do that at a big event. You can do it in those moments. You sit at a table with somebody, he's like, hey, man, who are you? Yeah, you pass business card. but man, it was kind of a little bit intimidating because you're sitting here and everybody's hearing me tell you all this now. But when somebody calls you that you don't know, or they send you an email and they say, hey, I want to talk with you. And now you're getting caught on the carpet because now you can't say, oh man, I ain't going to meet with you because I just did an interview talking about, oh man, we got to get together and we got to talk. Well, now they're saying, hey man, I want to answer that. I want to answer the bell and I want to meet with you. And whether it's, someone from different churches and, they do all these type of things, background, socioeconomic, age, man, we sit and talk. And these are not easy discussions because they're leaning in knowing that, hey, I don't really know what to say. I've had, man, people, me and my wife, Stacey, went somewhere and I thought we were talking to her friend's family. We get out there, there's 50 people. And I'm like, this is not what I was expecting.
4, maybe 5.
I'm expecting maybe 6 people. I'm expecting a family, right? But like we pull up at a park and there was 50 people. And mind you, all those 50 people didn't look like me. So I'm like, okay. But one of the first questions that were asked, and again, there's no right question or wrong question, but they said, hey, what do I call you? Not my name, but is it okay? Is it proper for me to say Black, African-American? What should I say? Yeah, I said, man, you can call me African-American, you can call me Black. I'm good. I'm not offended by either one of them. Right? But sometimes it's those little things that sometimes slows us up from even trying to meet and talk. And so we've had the opportunity, I would say the past 2 months, where we've probably engaged with about 100 different people that didn't look like us in conversations and tough conversations, uncomfortable conversations to where we speak and we've talked. But at the end of the day, when we left, we hugged, we laughed, we prayed. And if we're not as an organization leaning into those spaces and those spots, those conversations never happen.
Yep. That right there, that chop and wood of relationships, it is, like you said, that, oh man, I'm so glad I'm recording this because like you said it earlier about changing one person is changing a culture. Was that what you said?
Yeah. When a person or when people change, then culture changes. Because man, we're getting more educated, we're getting more enlightened, we're getting more aware, and what has to happen within it, let's not even just talk about the bigger culture, but the culture within your own home, the culture within your own life, right? That begins to shift and change. Why? Because man, I had a conversation to talk with somebody maybe who I would have never talked to. And so as a result of that, I have changed. So therefore, my culture within my home is going to shift and change. Why? Because of this interaction. And that's what happens on a small scale level. And I know it's not our culture in America to think small because everything is big, right? It's the big house, the big car, it's the big paycheck, right? It's the bigness of things, but despise not the day of small beginnings. Zechariah 4:10, right? Despise not the day of small beginnings, right? And I think sometimes that's the trick. And that's where we feel like we're not doing enough because it ain't big enough. But no, man, let's not despise the day of this small conversation, of this small interaction, of this relationship between these two people and what it may birth out for our country, for our nation, and for our culture. And so that would be my word of encouragement, man, just kind of as we wind down, just to say, despise not the day of small things. Don't. We talk about, and again, we can relate to this, Ben, right? We talk about a mustard seed. How big is a mustard seed, man? I mean, it's itsy bitty, right? But man, when that thing is planted, when it's watered, what does it become? You know what I mean? Yeah. And so, yeah.
And dude, it's just and it's just relationships, man. And itsy bitty. I've never heard itsy bitty. I've heard itsy bitsy. but that might just be us finding another thing that we can celebrate. There was this great line. We were out with some fantastic partners of ours at Rahab, and Coach turns to me in the middle of it, goes, you wouldn't get it. It's not a black thing, Ben. It's a cool thing. You just wouldn't get it. I just laughed my head off. I know you got to get going, Coach, in just a minute. But what I'd love to do, guys, is we are a Christian organization at Love Akron, but by no means are we ever wanting that to be exclusive. We need everybody to love Akron. Right. But part of what we do is we do just want to thank God in this moment, because we're going into the school year. We're going to the next thing. We got, black and white conversation. We'll show something about that once Coach is off. Great conversations, 100 black men. But honestly, guys, we can say this with all assurance. I remember sitting down with Coach a year ago being like, man, you think this thing's going to work? Like, how is this going to work? I want to run with you, but what are we running to? What are we running for? And God has been unbelievably faithful. And bro, if you just want to pray it up, man, I would just love to agree with you in that, and then I'll let you get going.
All right, man. Well, hey, Daddy God, we just come before you, just so grateful for the past 8 months and what you have brought unto us and what we've been able to learn. Just from the position and perspective of being high. We ask today that as schools open back up, that you just continue to have your hand upon these young people and upon teachers in the school buildings, Lord. And that, Father, you just continue to impress upon us, man, despising not the day of small beginnings. Continue to impress upon us that it's more important for us to love one another, to stand with one another, and to encourage one another. That we don't have to be highly critical, that we don't have to be just affirming, but we can affirm, we can find common ground with each other. Even though we may believe differently, that what I seek to do, Lord God, is to affirm brothers and sisters and to find common ground with them. Because when we can do those things, then collective impact can truly happen. So I just thank you for Ben, I thank you for Love Akron, I thank you for our mayor, all of our elected officials here in Greater Akron. Thank you for all the school districts, superintendents, and all the administrative staff and principals across Greater Akron. I pray that you give them wisdom in this time, that they may make the decisions that are best for their communities and for their schools. In Jesus' name, amen.
Took off my glasses, can't see where the unmute button is. Hold on. Yeah, brother, love serving with you, and we'll be doing it. So I know you got to jump off, and those watching, guys, if you don't do anything else today, make sure
Love
that you
Akron. Love Akron.
All right, see brother. You, brother. Oh man, guys, I love that guy. Truly, like, you should reach out to him at some point and just talk to him, because it's worth doing. You can actually message us right here, Facebook or YouTube, wherever you're watching from. You go to loveakron.org. A couple things I want to let you know about. Next week is a big conversation, a very exciting conversation that I want to show you a clip of. And then we'll actually talk about one of our partners, 100 Black Men, Coach Michael Irby. It's funny. I just know him as Coach. But here is our conversation next week. So take a look and definitely sign up. I'll put the link in the comments section. So next week's about white privilege.
One of the terms I hated for years, that I have rejected as being a part of, and that has personally offended me at times, is the term white privilege. And oftentimes, whenever someone says you're privileged in a certain area, you immediately build up a defense of that. Oftentimes, you want to rise up and you want to say, one of the terms I'm not privileged, I work for what I have. So the term privilege oftentimes brings an immediate defense, because most people that think you're privileged have no idea about your journey.
and not cross this off the agenda. It's got to stay on the agenda. And if you don't do anything else, love Akron.
Oh man, I am excited about that conversation. I'm actually just putting right in the comments below here. You can just click this link that goes straight to our Zoom meeting. You can register on there. You can invite others to it. Please come out to that event. As well, we're very excited about our partnership. And if you're ever interested in Love Akron partnership, if you just go to loveakron.org, and if you select, you come on there. Heck, let me just show you what it looks like. If you come on loveakron.org right here, and then you go to partners, you can do two things. One, you can look at our featured partners, and these are just amazing people that we locked arms with and love getting to serve together with, and just great folk all over Greater Akron. And one of our newest partners is 100 Black Men of Greater Akron. And I want to show you something that's coming up, a great conversation that really, it's almost a derivative, kind of part two to our very first Black and White conversation, connection versus collision. But it's speaking specifically to those in the police force and saying what can we do post Minneapolis. So I want to show you this video, and make sure to come out to this wonderful event. Excuse me. After the atrocities of Minneapolis, police relationships can feel broken. But 100 Black Men of Akron wants to invite you to Where Do We Go From Here on August 20th from 6 to 7 p.m. This much-needed online conversation is on community and police relationships post-Minneapolis. Our community panelists are Akron Police Chief Kenneth Ball, Community Relation Lieutenant Mike Miller, and Deputy Mayor of Public Service Charles Brown. Michael Irby, the president of 100 Black Men of Greater Akron, and Coach Kemp, executive director of Love Akron, want to invite you to be a part of the conversations. Click the link with this video to register for Where Do We Go From Here, an online conversation on community and police relationships post-Minneapolis. Definitely want to come out to that. I was just talking to Coach Michael Irby, and man, I love that guy, and I love what they're doing. And I actually know Kenneth Ball from growing up. I knew him as Policeman Ken, but now he's like Super Policeman Ken, which is awesome. So make sure to sign up for that. I'll put a link right below for that as well. Jump into those conversations, share those conversations. We want to keep this movement going. This isn't just a moment, it's a movement. And I'm excited that we get to be a part of it together. So like we said earlier, if you don't do anything else, make sure that you love Akron. See you guys.